would like to welcome to our chief guest, chair, and distinguished participants to this interactive session on understanding world and Middle East geopolitics. Before that, let me briefly provide the profile of Ambassador Anil Trigunayat. He is the distinguished fellow in Vivekananda International Foundation in India. And he is also a member of Indian Foreign Service and served in the Indian mission in Bangladesh, Mongolia, US, Russia, Sweden, Nigeria, Libya, and Jordan. In the Ministry of External Affairs, he has worked in the Economic, West Asia, North Africa, and Consular Division. He also served as the Director General, Joint Secretary for the Gulf and House Division in the Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi. He is also the visiting fellow, conducted research for the WTO and regional trading laws at the Oxford University, and member of All India Management Association, Delhi Management Association. And he's also the honorary member of International Trade Councils based in Brussels. He also regularly contributes in the Financial Express and other leading newspapers. So we sincerely like to welcome him to this program, and we would also like to accept our sincere thanks for accepting our invitations and to participate in this program. Before handing over to our guests, let me just briefly put some points in order to set the context. We see that predictability of global politics is diminishing with the increasing disarray in world politics. And interaction we are witnessing today in Kathmandu is rare, I guess. But if we see the discourse that is happening around the world, Middle East is one of the most discussed issues in the global arena. We know that Saudi-Iranian approach war in Middle East for their tussles to have the prominence over the dominance for the region. And Middle East also the region which constitutes more than 65% of the world proven reserve oil. We know that the oil resources countries have their disposal is the strength for the economic prosperity undoubtedly, but at the meantime it is also the unfortunately became reason with the crisis and war in the region. Furthermore, there is also the direct correlations between the booming of oil industry in the Middle East and as well as the flow of South Asian migration to the Middle East. So any sort of disruption that happens in the Middle East, that will definitely going to impact the world economy in the world, as well as the it also has the certain kind of economic impact to the South Asia, particularly the inflow of remittance. Even though Nepal do have a tremendous amount of hydroelectricity potential, the use of oil is the dominant, at least in the public transportation sector. So maybe this is also the reason that we need to understand how the global oil market is shifting, and then geopolitics that is ongoing in the Middle East. After the Trump administration withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which is popularly known as the JCPOA, between Iran and other major power in 2015, also with the waiver granted to some major Iranian oil importing countries, including Iran, which came at the end, shows that the increasing tensions in the region. And at the same time, the US looks harsh in its dealing with the Iran with the so-called maximum pressure campaign towards the Iran. And if we see the trade balance between the Iran and our neighbor India, it is almost around 10 to 15 billion dollars per year. And in an attempt to reduce the Iranian export to the zero, running from the DC to Delhi is rising up, I guess, because just yesterday, Trump administration said that sanctions will apply if Delhi crosses the level of oil import negotiated before the May. And there is also the other strategic partnership that is going between Iran and then India. For instance, our port, which India is investing. And the significance is if from the Chawar port, India can trade with the Afghanistan and Central Asian country by circumventing the Pakistan. So lastly, commenting on the recent incident about the sabotage of 4 vessels in the coastal area of UAE, John Bolton, National Security Advisor of Trump, accused that Iran for that action, and said metaphorically, who else would you think is doing it? Someone from Nepal? Definitely we know that we didn't have that influencing capacity or any stake on that. So having said that, I'd like to request Ambassador. We can also briefly, as we are in very limited number, so we can also briefly provide the brief introduction one by one. So that will be more easier for like familiarizing ourselves for this interaction. So maybe I can move from here.
Namaste, I'm Sir Bharat KC, Senior Advocate.
Namaste, this is Arun Subedi.
Vivekananda Sarkar, Associated Nepal Council of Foreign Affairs.
Rakesh Shrestha, Institute of Foreign Affairs.
Good afternoon, I'm Mohan Shrestha, I'm former ambassador to France and president of Center for Diplomacy and Technology. It's a new institution. Nice to meet you.
I'm Sunil Manandar, Central Committee member of Nepal Communist Party.
Namaste, Ganesh Shah, Standing Committee member of the Nepal Communist Party.
Yeah, my name is Sunil Kesi. I'm the founder of AIDIA. Thank you.
Namaste, Purva Lalita, Renewable Energy Confederation of Nepal.
Namaste, I am Vikas Adhikari. I am faculty member at Institute of Forestry and I teach forest ecology.
I am Vishnu Mehta, former master teacher and also director of Southeast Asia Policy Analysis Network.
Namaste, I am Lakshman Bhosle. I was involved in government of Nepal long day.
Namaste, good evening. I'm Sundarmani Acharya. I'm affiliated with Nepal Communist Party. I was the previous constituency president and previous election province member from Nepal Communist Party.
Hello, namaste. I'm Arupana Shrestha. I work at a human rights organization called Collective Campaign for Peace.
I'm Major General Innovation National retired from the army. Stress. Retired Lieutenant General Nepal Bhushan. I am affiliated with Center for Strategic Studies, CSAS.
So thank you everyone for the introduction. So we'd like to move with the remarks of our chief guest.
Excellencies, dear friends, firstly let me apologize for the delay of 30 minutes. But we can always blame the traffic police. It is indeed a great pleasure and honor for me to come and talk to you at this Asian Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs on a very important topic. In fact, I could say that Mr. Shamli has very carefully summarized everything that is happening there. So I could just close it and say everything has been said. But it is indeed, there is some region in which I have devoted about 2 decades in the foreign service. And my last posting was as ambassador to Jordan, in Libya. And I have witnessed the kind of games that are being played in different countries by the big powers, essentially. Whenever they wish to control an asset, they go all out. They find ways to create their shields. Whenever they want to destabilize the area which is no longer of great use to them, they can again destabilize. I had some written comments, I wanted to go through it, but I think what I'll do is off the cuff. I'll try to dwell on a few issues related to the topic, and then I think the question answers it will be much better in the comments rather than just reading out what you already know, as you have already summarized quite a bit of what is the context. The Middle East, as we all know, is our extended neighborhood of the South Asia. It is extremely important for us, for almost all countries in South Asia, for three very basic reasons. Number one is our energy security. Whether it is coming via India to some countries like Nepal or Sri Lanka or some other countries, or it is our huge diaspora, which is present. Their welfare, I mean, for example, the Indians are about 9 million now. And similarly, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million others are. And thirdly, the kind of the amount of remittances that they make to our respective countries are extremely important for our own budgetary requirements in the country. And I want to tell you, and I'm sure this is true of all the people from other than India, that these people who are living in the Middle East and especially in the Gulf, for them, whatever they are earning is coming back to their countries. Compared to the Indians, let's say 13 million Indians who are living in different parts of the world, they send in the money, but the moment there is some problem in the banking system, they are the first one to take it out. And so sometimes in the media, they were commented as non-reliable Indians, as NRIs. So what I'm trying to say is that the people living in the Gulf, where many of them are blue-collar workers, for them, feeding into their economies by virtue of their subsistence and existence in those places is extremely important for us. Now, energy security is extremely important for us for very simple reasons. And as you mentioned, 65%, or actually some estimates say it's about 80% of the reserves are located in this very, very volatile region. It was not problematic if you were to go back, it was in I think 1859, the first time the oil was struck in America by Drake. 160 years exact this year. And the first oil well that was done was in Iran in 1908. Thereafter, Saudi Arabia and other countries have been, since they became independent, until then they were British. And then today, what has happened is that since 1970s, they continue to have greater growth by virtue of simply oil. So leadership in these countries made a lot of money for themselves, and they made a lot of money for the Westerners. And they parked their funds also in the Western countries. So they are so much integrated that today the leadership in all these countries is unable to extricate itself from their direct involvement, both sides, within the European or Americans and with these countries. Now, over the years, in the beginning, in the 70s, as you know, the first time the oil was used as a weapon was in 1973. And it was used when there was the Yom Kippur War, which happened between Israel and the Arab countries. They realized that the worth and the strength of this oil, that created a very big problem for us, our countries, which were still at a developing stage. It also created a major problem for countries like the United States. And then they realized that they could not continue to remain dependent on the Middle Eastern countries. And therefore the Americans and the other countries started to have alternate sources of energy and also tried to have their own independence. Now, come to 2018 or 17, what is the situation today? USA, that used to be a major importer of oil and gas from the Middle East, has become totally independent of this. They are actually the net exporter. Only a few months ago, the first big ship of LNG came from United States to India. We have become there one of the major importers in Asia. So instead of importing directly from here, we are also going out because we also require our energy security, seeing the kind of problems that are happening. Even India suffered 1990s. You will recall when there were Iraq war, or when there was Iraq-Iran war, around the 80s, late 80s. And that caused a major problem for all our economies. But come 2008, when there was a financial problems happening in the global meltdown was happening, the Arab countries or the major producers including Iran realized that while the Western countries had cut down on their imports, trying to get their independence somehow, making themselves independent of the Middle East oil, it was the countries like India and China that paid for it a very heavy price and continued to import throughout. They did not let it down. And that is why the progress in these countries continued. At the same time, there is a clear divide. Now, this brings us to a point in strategic terms that the Americans today, apart from being a hyperpower, because there is, after the Cold War, there is no balancing power left, they can call the shots sitting 10,000 miles away. And this is precisely what you do. Today you are talking about Iran. Now with great difficulty, we had seen that Obama administration and the 5 other countries had got together. China pushed Iran into this, Russia pushed Iran into this deal, because every country wants independence. Independence of or strategic autonomy in its decision making. That is not available to these countries in the Middle East because they are under the US umbrella of security. And therefore it's not possible for them to take any decision. But Iran is not that. Iran is one country that is a civilization country that has stood the test of time and has stood the sanctions that have been provided. Excellency, you've been in France and you know, in Japan, that France has so much of interest in Iran and they would like it to remain in a normal course. And therefore this JCPOA, which was signed with great difficulty, was a major achievement. Even though no deal is perfect, every deal leaves something for the other, and this was also the same. But it was the best thing to begin with. And the Iranians were come on board. Why were they on board? Because they were also suffering from the sanctions. Only China, Turkey, India cannot sustain their economy or can bring it to the level that they want to do. I mean, decades of sanctions do have impair your growth prospects and your autonomy in decision making. So they agreed to that, and they agreed that they will no longer seek a nuclear weapon, provided the sanctions are lifted. And immediately, as you see, the Iranian oil started flowing into Europe, back to almost the levels that it was before the sanctions. That provided them enough cash, they provided them enough possibility of flexing their muscles. In the meantime, the Saudis and the Saudi-Israeli on the one side, and the Iranians on the other, they have this problem of existential threat, whether it is the Shia-Sunni divide, whether it is due to the oil problems, that both of them are competing for the same markets in the oil. So one can say that, or for that matter, any country that is rich, I mean, now let's come to Saudi Arabia first. Saudi Arabia is the biggest economy of the region, but Saudi Arabia is also one country that has been expanding its Wahhabi footprint across the world. Although they have been left out themselves, but they have not contained it. In every country they go to, they are trying to bring about some of these Islamic extremist elements to be supported by the state. And not only this, you see Qatar, you see UAE, you see all these countries, they have been supporting various Islamic groups in one way or the other. Iran, on the other hand, supports Hezbollah, which is in Lebanon, which has been fighting the Israelis. So today, Israelis would like to see that Iran is no longer on the map of the world. Saudi Arabians would like to see there is a change in the regime because of the Shia-Sunni divide. And also you can see that there is a problem in Saudi Arabia also from within. After the change in the government, the King Salman came and the Mohammed bin Salman came and the Khashoggi affair, so they are having the internal problem. But they were extremely unhappy with the Americans for reaching out this deal. So were the Israelis. So they have been working on it continuously. Come President Trump, who is an extremely unpredictable leader. You do not know which tweet will decide what and when. So when you say Bolton is saying something that it was Iranian, it was expected. You know, I have been in Libya at the time when the war happened. And the Americans had no reason to come there and bomb the place. He was doing nothing to them. But just the man stood against the might of the American dollar and tried to have a gold standard, Gaddafi. He was a crazy man, no doubt. But at the same time, he was trying to assert his independence. And he got carried away by thinking that now he has befriended the British, the Italians and the French, and so they will save him out of this. But the French Sarkozy, we know, it took away $85 million from him, euros from him, for his campaign, which has come out true now. So did Hillary also. So everybody tried to make a very big deal and made him say that, okay, don't worry, nothing will happen to you. 2,000 of you can get out of the country. We'll save you, provide you an exit and all that. But first time a man who had ruled for 42 years got befooled by these things. It happens when you either go senile or you trust your friend a bit too much. So in both these cases, this is what happened. So this was a clear intervention. Come 2003, there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And in my view, the invasion of Iraq is the mother of all evils in the 20th century. All institutions have been decimated. United Nations have not even remained at top shop. Forget about its validity or it cannot assert anything. So today, if you have the might, you have the right. You can go ahead and do anything. And this is a very, very dangerous situation that is happening in our part of the world. And the Middle East today is, and Yemen war is one more I would like to achieve. My take on the Yemen war is that the Saudis have been nursing their wounds vis-a-vis the rapprochement that happened between Iran and US or the West. They have they are the biggest buyer of arms, American arms today. And the whole of Middle East is flush with so much of latest arms and ammunition that probably it can decimate the world many times over. All of them. And Saudi Arabia, Iran, all these countries, Israel, they are all becoming big nuclear powers. You can imagine, I mean, once they acquire this kind of strategic imbalance or of thought and decision making, if you have these kind of people having nuclear weapons, what is going to happen to these countries? But they have the capability of acquiring it, and they have expressed their interest in doing so. But fortunately for us, what has happened, good or bad? Fortunately for us, what has happened is now they are left with maximum reserves of 80 to 100 years. So they have realized that oil cannot remain as their sole resource. And therefore, all these countries are trying to diversify. The UAE has the largest solar plant in the world. It will be made by an Indian company. Saudi Arabia, I was there, Riyadh, only 2 months ago. And they want, under their 2030 reforms program, to completely change the way the economy functions. They want to reduce that. Similarly, Iranians want to get out of it so that they can modernize themselves a little more in that sense of the term. So they are like trying to move out and have their own developmental models in which at least the monarchies remain safe. The whole idea is to keep the monarchy. So what they do is they try to give the booties, they try to give loans, they write off your loans or whatever, credit card bills, everything. Suddenly one fine day you will find the state has taken care of everything, you are back. That's how people are. But these countries are also having a population bulge. Aspirational class is beginning in those countries. They want to have their own say. So therefore this Arab Spring of 2010 and 11, although it was externally induced in other countries except Tunisia. Tunisia was the only country where it was sui generis. It happened. But in all other countries, especially in Libya and Egypt, it was all from outside. As you know, that the problem that happened between Qatar and Saudi Arabia is again for the religious leadership. A small country like Qatar cannot take on a country like Saudi Arabia. But how? They can. This is the country which has the largest per capita in the world, $1,38,000. This is the highest per capita income in the world, is Qatar. Now, so Saudi Arabia obviously thinking that this is a small pack on the Gulf, how can they believe in this? They were supporting Muslim Brotherhood, which was also won the election in Egypt after the Arab Spring. This was also again, if you see Egypt, Middle East, what is happening in Egypt is we are back to 360 degrees turn. They started with a military ruler, ended with a military ruler. So this is precisely the situation in Egypt, which is supposed to be a democracy. And Muslim Brotherhood, they didn't know how to rule, so they obviously versioned it out. Then you come to Libya. Today, Libya is the biggest mess there. The Yemen war that started because the Saudis wanted to flex their muscles against the Houthis. In my reading it, and you might agree or disagree, but Houthis are the only ones in the Middle East who are the real fighters. They know how to fight. Like in every country there is a certain tribe which is good in fighting, and they do fight. And just to tell you the little background, we used to have Nizam of Hyderabad, who was the richest man in India, was it Yasser. He had 100,000 Yemenis, Houthis in his army. And then they were protecting him from whatever. So they are fighting. On the other, these people, the other Gulf countries, they have the latest arms, ammunition and everything. But they have become sheikhs. So today what are they doing? They are hiring Pakistani pilots. They are hiring Jordanian army to come and fight with them. Because Jordan doesn't have oil. So it depends mostly on human resource. And the human resource, they have a very highly trained, well-trained army from the British and the Americans. So they are using it. They are using Pakistan. Every Pakistani pilot who goes and bombs Yemeni targets gets $7,500 per sortie. So this is what the situation is. It's an unwinnable war. And their economies, because of any war, wherever a war happens, you know that the economies get back to at least decades. And this is precisely a big challenge that Saudi Arabia faces. Plus 30% of Saudi population, 70% of Bahraini population are Shias. And the Shias in Saudi Arabia are actually located in the oil-rich region. And so that is the another dimension that might, if they don't have the economic parity, equality and the benefits of this, you might see a problem from within the country in that. So now what the Americans are doing, Trump has decided he always takes this maximalist position. That if you don't do this, I'm going to bomb you. No doubt, Americans are the most powerful country, they can bomb any country into ashes. But you may win the war, but you can't win the peace. They have not done so in Iraq, they have not done so anywhere. And in fact, they are trying to find a way to get out of Afghanistan. Afghanistan is going to be their biggest Waterloo once again. So they want to get out from there. But they also do not want that the Russians come and take over that space. And the Russians have played, especially Putin, very smart game since 2015 or 16 when he came into Syria. He came into Syria to protect their only base in the Middle East. And today the situation is that not only they have got not one but three bases in the Mediterranean and in the other areas, but they have also got excellent relations with all the countries. So today Russia has become a major power in the Middle East. Now what happens to Israel? Now of course Israel, fortunately, is that Netanyahu has to fight the election once again. Otherwise he is a big hawk. And he wants to Americans to go in. And Americans may not fight themselves. They might get the Israelis to come and do the needful for them vis-a-vis Iran. But my problem is, think of a scenario from our point of view now. The war is waiting to happen. And as we know as historians and strategic thinkers, the wars happen on a very flimsy excuse. The Second World War, the First World War. I mean, you don't need these kind of big buildings. Suddenly with a minor misunderstanding you can have a war. One missile hitting there. Now they are saying Bolton said it was the Iranians who did it. There is no proof. Not only there is no proof, the Americans' credibility is zero or minus vis-a-vis these things. If you see Joe Biden's statement the other day, he was very clearly saying there is nothing that is there. So we just want to create a war where it is none, where perhaps by dialogue you could do that. What they are trying to think is that under putting tremendous sanction pressure, putting other pressure on the other countries, probably the Iranians will come to the table and agree to more restraints on that. In my view, it is not necessarily for the good for the global peace, even if that happens. It is essentially to suit their ego and to maintain their supremacy. That's it. I got it done. Now North Korea, you have seen, just compare Iran to North Korea. It is exactly the same scenario that he is trying to play out. But Iran is not North Korea. Iran is a very civilized country, and its diplomats and its army, everybody, I mean, even though today they are very Islamized, but at the same time they are educated people who are thinkers, who have seen the world and who plan things in a different way compared to the Bedouins in the rest of the Gulf. So Iran is not coming here. They simply say we can't trust this man. If you want to go to the table, you want to talk to a person, how do you talk when you can't trust them? So this is the main problem. Now, as of today, we have this kind of a situation which is prevailing in our neighborhood. Suppose for God's sake, by our misfortune, the war really happens, then it is going to create a very major problem for the countries, all our countries. Firstly, energy supplies. How will they allow the three major routes, Bab-el-Mandab or Suez Canal, this will all come into a lot of firing line. That will be one of the biggest problems that will immediately impact on our survival and the oil prices will go up obviously because it will be much lower availability at the time. Even if 10 days, 15 days war will have a tremendous impact on our growth prospects. So countries like India and Nepal, everybody will suffer in the process. We have started diversifying our energy resources, but it doesn't happen. We buy from Venezuela also, but today Venezuela, they want to change the regime there. So you can't get it from there as well. So where do you go? I mean, this is the biggest problem for you. China has also, despite its all strength and all this articulations, is also reducing its imports from Iran. In the Middle East, a new paradigm after the Qatar and Saudi Arabia spat that happened, courtesy President Trump, is today a divided lot. I mean, all the Arab countries are not one together. There is a Turkey, Qatar and Iran, supported by Russia and China, another equation that has emerged in the region, which is going to be contradicting the rest. Europeans don't know themselves where do they sit with Trump. So they don't want this war to happen. They're trying with their best. But Europeans today, their power has reduced significantly. So they are not in a position where they can influence a Trump not to do something or the other. Turkey is the only country. This is again run by a strong man, so he stands up. Putin is there. He doesn't want to take on the Americans directly, but Putin and Xi Jinping together, they have become a force to reckon with. So what we are looking at the worst case scenario. We are looking at a global partition of power and a very similar situation like World War III. And this will be far worse. Even if it is conventional weapons that fire. Now they have brought in the laser weapons, frankly, in the Middle East. Today, as you know, there are 11 bases that the Americans have in the Middle East with more than 50,000 forces. Latest equipment. So what do they need more? They are getting 120,000. Who are they fighting? And who's going to pay for it? You know, the first Iraq war was paid by Japan. The second one, they refused. They said, no, we don't want it. They don't want it. So what I'm saying is that this kind of an uncertainty, and it is the biggest, largest, greatest democracy in the world, having a dictatorial approach is not good for the peace of any country. It is not global peace, it is not for. What will happen afterwards, one doesn't know. My hope is, and prayers are, that the Iranians eventually will be persuaded to talk. Oman is talking to them. India is also trying to tell them. The Europeans are telling them. The French are playing a big role in this. Russians, everybody is telling the Iranians should come to the table and talk to them. Provided, but as long as hawks like Bolton continue to make these kind of statements, uncertainty will continue and it can just happen. Our relations, of course, in the oil sector between India is, of course, as you know, 75%, 76% of our oil and gas are imported, 80% of our gas, and 70% of our oil is imported. And we have signed an agreement with Nepal to supply 1.3 million tons regularly. We are trying to do something in Bangladesh in the oil and gas field, also with Sri Lanka, supporting them as much as we can do. But the biggest impact, if the Indian economy suffers as a result of this, obviously it will have an impact on our own region. We ourselves are having a problem in our own region, South Asia. We are not so very different from the Middle East, what is happening here, which is also quite terrible. And if we cannot, just one issue in my view is terrorism between India and Pakistan that has made hostage to everything else. And we need to, because see today, you can see what America is doing, you can see what Iran is doing, you can see what India is doing, what Nepal is doing. But you cannot say what Taliban is doing or what Jaish-e-Mohammed will be doing or what the non-state actors because of the surprise element and the excellent coordination mechanisms, they have this kind of power over the state actors, proper state actors, that is very difficult to conduct. So unless we have a global collaboration in these, it will be extremely difficult for the world to look for peace or peace for a long period of time. Competition is very important. Our relations with China are described very well. It's a competition with cooperation. We have a problem with them on boundary issues. We have a problem with them on sovereignty issues. We have a problem with them on the market access issues or something like that. But that has not prevented us from cooperating with each other on major global issues. They have their own game plan, we have our own game plan. But at the same time, we are not here to decimate one another. That is the thing. I mean, as of today, we don't know what will happen 5 years from now. But the global powers are playing the game within also our region. And I am of the opinion that we should not become the pawns in the hands of the big powers, whether it is US, whether it is Russia, whether it is any other country. That we get carried away thinking that it is providing us security and get carried away and do something on the behest. This is my personal thinking. But I think I should stop here and we should have question answer then better. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for providing, underlying the holistic development that is going in the Middle East. So, as our title suggests, that interactive session on understanding the world and Middle East geopolitics. So, in order to make it more interactive, let us have questions or like brief remarks and then try to comments.
It's a very comprehensive. Of course, India was importing 70%, and we were very seriously marking that Iran was the third largest oil supply crude oil to India after Saudi and after Iran. But two contradictions. I will say that there are internal problems in Saudi Arabia. But still, because of the umbrella factor, Saudi could be one more focus. Because your ambassador, that recently asked about the ambassador to the United States, he has withdrawn the support from Iran. Very recently. This is very crucial because up to now we were balancing. We are very happy because our oil totally depends on India. China is a big part of it. It is very expensive. Only that solution is only at the time of crisis, like last time. The factor that Saudi now being the US umbrella factor might be more focused than your proposal and problematic presentation. But more focused. Because Venezuela, now the third supplier to India, doesn't work. Because even now they have the contradictions and America shut down the and imposed the embargo to Venezuela. That will not be a permanent solution for India, but whole of South India means in case of oil, Nepal, whole of South Asia, particularly Nepal, we have concerned. Therefore, sir, what I think, there are two factors, political. Your presentation is comparison of the regional situation, regional security you started, might is right you started. What I have there are two factors that India should reconsider. The Quad factor, for example, number one, Quad factor, because the Australian and Japanese and also the American perspective in the Quad. Perhaps there should be there is a need of balance for India to take over. Not to be directly like 1971, 91, USSR back. You should have a balance. You should focus the region. Look east at east. Of course the region is there. Number one, there is a need of balance so that the politics for India will be easier. Second is also you have to work very strategically, Indo-Pacific strategy, the newest, latest development of the world. That also is making India difficult for world supply. The whole of the region, the Indo-Pacific region, what we perceive as the third largest supplier, Iran was there. there was somehow the mechanism, because Russia is also not very effective. There is a very good relation, not only the BRICS factor, but traditional relations with Russia, India has a very good relation. These are the 3 points that Indian foreign policy, now our foreign policy expert certainly, the minister, the foreign secretary has been the minister, he will consider my suggestions. And because there is a regional benefit regarding Iran, Pakistan, one day Indo-Pak relations will have to improve. It is a question of time. We are waiting that time, Indo-Pak relations improve, SAARC re-established. And because not only things, SAARC also has a role for South Asia. SAARC is very important. We are the founders. You are the founders. We are, many countries from South Asia are the founders of SAARC. Therefore, we are really very much waiting for that day that Indo-Pak relations do come better and also improve for Iran, Pakistan, India pipeline. That is very important because Central Asian pipeline, that also takes a long time. That is not very easy, but that is the practical. One day when Indo-Pak relations, and that will be conducive environment. And of course, the options you already did, 2019, that energy kind of hold, you have to go to the alternative. Nepal is ready. From the track to diplomacy, I am not in power, but I have the power support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. I fully agree with you that all these new modus operandi, or I would say the new emerging institutions like Quad, are extremely important. But the problem with Quad, and I am not now talking as an Indian diplomat, I'm talking from a Chinese perspective, a Russian perspective. Because Quad also cannot operate by itself in vacuum. The Quad will have to take into account the concerns against whom? Against China. Against China means China plus Russia. So we have to really think about it, and that is the reason that in Quad all the 4 countries have very different positions. The American position is very clear, they want to contain China. That is their basic fundamental question. Now how they want to contain China? They want to contain China with the help of India and China. Australia has also taken no view as it. India currently, if you come to think of it, we meet, we do exercises, we have trilateral, 4 quadrilateral exercises, we just did recently with Quad, everything. We have great relations with the Americans militarily because they are getting a big pie in our defense procurements. The problem that India currently is facing is that we do not want to have a problem with China. India wants a modus vivendi with China in a way, and that is why when Prime Minister had Modi and Xi Jinping, they decided to have this Wuhan summit. And therefore this Wuhan spirit was developed, which means we are not going to essentially, in a nutshell, it can say, on our strategic interests, we are not going to undermine. So wherever possible, after the Doklam and all that. So this has worked very well till now. The second informal summit, which will be held in Varanasi in October again. So this has become a major way of working. Similarly, Prime Minister Modi is meeting with Putin on the informal summit discussion. Today, Russia has become sort of a go-between India and China in everything. Not only RIC, not in the BRICS, but through a separate trilateral track on these issues. So I feel, Excellency, that Quad will take still a long time to come. And my feeling is that India should also, before, it is very, it could be fashionable, it could be perhaps desirable in the short run to immediately cast your lot with the Quad. But I think we should let the Quad develop first. What is it? Are we going to serve the American interest in Indian Ocean? Is that the only thing? Japanese same thing Indo-Pacific. Indo-Pacific and Quad are synonymous in many ways. Because from Asia-Pacific turning into India-Pacific, it's basically Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean. So that's what it is. But by making as Indo-Pacific, The Americans think tanks tried to give it a spin. It is because of our great relationship with India that instead of Asia Pacific, we are calling it as Indo-Pacific. I personally, as a realist and a person, I think that we should not fall into this vocabulary business. We need to see what is our larger interest. The larger interest of India is to smoothly grow and not be drawn into any conflicts that will decimate its growth and will take it backwards. Beyond 10 decade or 2 decades, then India is gone. And many people may not agree, but I feel that to keep their supremacy, we are part of their pawns and their chess. We have to be careful. Of course, we need to collaborate with everybody, but then it should not be seen, or nobody wants it to be seen as something which is being created to counter or contain it, at least overtly. That is what my view is. You are perfect, Sir, Excellency, that without our SARC is an important, very important organization. We are all founder members. We want it to continue. India has tried its best. The only problem, as I said in passing, India has with Pakistan is terrorism. State across the state. This is the only country in the world which uses terrorism as a state policy. And not because we have anything with Imran Khan or with Nawaz Sharif or anyone else. The problem is that in that country, Army and the ISI rule the roost. They are the ones who are continuing to create the problems. Kashmir, we have said we are ready to Imran. No, not Imran. Imran is just a tool in my view, sir. He doesn't have the full control of his authority. What is the point in a democracy where the democratic leader cannot take a real decision? Decision is still taken by those guys. But all the signals that are coming from there, he wants to talk. He spoke to Prime Minister Modi, and very possibly both of them are going to be in SCO in the state during this month, from 24th to 26th. 14 to 16th of June in the state for the SCO summit. One never knows whether they will meet or they will not meet. But we are neighbors, and you cannot choose your neighbors. You are gifted with them. So we have to learn to live with them. And we have to learn with them as once the now today you can see it, that when this Pulwama thing happened and that India took the Balakot, whole world was with us. Because see today, the countries have recognized their limitations. Despite you may be the biggest power in the world, but 1911 shook the whole of the United States. 2611 in India created such a in 2008 was such a big thing for India. We haven't been able to get over, and then we keep getting these kind of things. Of course, our internal security should increase, but then they need only one chance, and you are working at 24/7. So it is in the interest of the whole world, including Pakistan. I was just talking to another friend in the embassy. I said if Pakistan decided to go on a developmental path, because India's basic policy, I can tell you, not for only public consumption, but is that a stronger Pakistan is in our favor. That is in our interest. We want a economically stronger Pakistan. That's a fact. That's the basic line. But it cannot be on the basis when you are shedding the blood of your people, because of these activities which they are not controlling. Fortunately, they are under tremendous control internationally today, under a lot of pressure. And I hope that they have of course taken some action against these major terrorist groups, and this will continue. And then we will be able to have discussion, because we said terror and talks cannot continue. So when there is a visible sign that some action is being taken with them, we would like a friendly Pakistan with us. We are after all the same people. We talk the same language, eat the same kind of food, or everybody loves good life. Where is the problem? Language is same, everybody speaks that in the North India at least. So what I find is that Pakistan has to decide. And today it's a bankrupt country. This is the biggest problem in the country. Despite that they are spending so much money on the arms and munitions and trade. Who's their enemy? They are doing the same thing in Iran, they are doing the same thing in Afghanistan. Because I have in Hindu, this thing, we have an old story of Bhasmasura. You must have remembered, Lord Shiva is the easiest to please. He's the easiest to please. So those who don't know, I can just narrate again. So he went and he to Shiv, and Shiv became very pleased with him, and he said, ask what you want. He said, give me the power that if I put my hand on someone, then he should be burnt to ashes. And he started wanting to try it on Shiva himself. He said, let me see if it works. So this is what happens when you cultivate the terrorist groups, the mercenaries. When they don't find any values, they come back to you. So today Pakistan says that we are suffering from this. Suffering from what? From whom? Your own homegrown terrorists. Because this is their profession. They have nothing to do with the religion. They need to be dealt with. I mean, I know the Jordanian king, he called them takfiris. And you know, in their country, they see a terrorist, they kill him. That's the first thing. It's Islamic country that they do. So you cannot have a softer view on terrorism by any standard because it is going to bite you. So that's, India, we are waiting for India-Pakistan-Iran pipeline. This would have been very easy for us, but with the kind of situation currently prevailing, it is not as the most feasible option. We are also working on TAPI. So hopefully both these pipelines will help all our countries prosper. In the meantime, what India has done after the NAM movement in the 50s, first time major international initiative, International Solar Alliance, that has been created, and which would be a game changer in another decade, if we have a decade of peace.
I have taken this floor to give some briefing about the Middle East vis-à-vis Nepal, as well as to ask some questions with you. Okay? For the benefit of the House, I want to say that Nepal has good relations with all the 6 GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council members in the Middle East. Recently, our government has established residential embassies in all the 6 countries, and ambassadors have been posted. I personally worked in United Arab Emirates for 3 years, and during that time, I also visited all these countries. They are fully developed, very nice. Of course, Saudi Arabia is the biggest economy, biggest and powerful country. Now, my another point is, as you have said rightly, energy security is most important in today's world. And a specific country like Nepal, very big economy, landlocked country. Even when few tankers are stopped in their border, we have a panic here.
Sorry about
Or we have power supply. You know. So, energy security is playing a big role in the international politics. People say, why Iraq and Iraq war happened, why America invaded Iraq during the 80s? Because it's something like for the achieving the security of the energy. That is what we are saying, okay? And as I said, for Nepal, we are fully dependent on oil, imported oil. We don't produce a drop of oil, natural gas. My another point is, as we have said about France also, I worked in France for 4 years. One American has written, I remember that article, France is such a country where sometimes the president goes and to preach a peace, but the prime ministers go to sell the weapons. Some Americans have said like that. Sometimes I also feel like that, because every presidential or prime ministers go to some other countries like China, India. India is a big partner. There's billions of worth of weapons. They have the best fighter planes, Rafale. Okay, and France is also a big player, P5 member, and they have playing a very big role in international politics, and they carry a loud voice. They try to maintain good relations with every country, and sometimes they were anti against Americans also during the Iran war also, Iraq war also. Now my question to you, in the face of President Trump's threat and intermittent pressure on Iran to back up from the agreement, how India is dealing with this problem? Okay? And I think India has relies much on the Iranian oil. We are in the process of constructing the oil pipeline also. It is completed or I don't have information. My second question is, now it seems that SARC after almost 31 or 32 years or 34 years, almost defunct, if not dead. And BIMSTEC is coming each and every day. And now recently, just yesterday, when Prime Minister Modi during his second term, he has invited the Pakistan's Prime Minister and few others. It seems now India is fully backing the BIMSTEC, not SAARC. But for Nepal, SAARC is also very important. The headquarters is here, we have invested so much hope in SAARC. So how this is developing? And on a personal note, if it is not an offensive question, just before coming here, I checked online. Now your foreign secretary, foreign affairs, has been a foreign minister, who seems to be a very hardliner. Even people have charged that he was the main brain behind the blockade 4 years ago. So how India will be dealing with our country? So can you kindly respond to my queries? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. It's very, very apt comments, I must say, which you have made. I fully agree with what you said on all the issues. Oil in beginning in the 90s and all definitely was one of the bigger concerns. And so was in, if America has become self-sufficient on net exporter, its partners like in Europe are still dependent on the Middle East oil. So therefore, to maintain the security of these oil reserves, so to fight for them or to protect them, also is America's one of the key interests. Libya also, why they intervened was one reason for this also, because he was trying to get a very independent kind of field, create a new alternate currency to the dollar. He wanted to go to either euro or go to separate. These are the things, and there are also other major reasons. So oil definitely remains very relevant even today, and even another 30, 40, 50 years it will remain a major. As far as India and Iran and the US are concerned, as you know that in the beginning, as soon as the Americans said that they are going to put sanctions on any country that imports, India was the first country which straight away told the Americans, which happened the last time also, if you remember, that we are going to, we need this oil, it's almost 2 million barrels. So we want this oil, and it is required in our refineries, and it is required for our energy security and the economic growth. And therefore, if you are our strategic partner, you have to provide us an exception to the rule. And the Americans first time agreed, the second time agreed. But as I told something, what I have understood of President Trump's policy, it is a very maximalist kind of policy. Put the maximum pressure. Now what happened is they allowed 8 countries, including Japan, Korea, India, and China, the waivers in November, which was to expire in May. So the Iranians did not feel the pinch. The whole purpose of the American policy was to somehow to throttle the Iranians to the extent that they come down to the knees. There is a disturbance internally, domestically, which is already beginning to happen, and that they come to the table. That is that. And they agree to whatever dotted line the Americans would say, which would not unlikely to happen. Because if you are going to have a very one-sided deal, it will be very difficult for the Iranians. So the last option for Iranians is to also protect and go to war. And that means Iran, not only in Iran, I mean, they have all over. They have Hezbollah, they have Yemen, they have everywhere. They are supposedly have their finger in every pie. So it is very likely. What India has done now, of course, as you know, Jawad Zarif, the foreign minister of Iran, was there. We immediately again requested the Americans to allow the waiver to continue. That is first thing they did. Yesterday, day before yesterday, President Trump or his administration said that there will be no further exceptions. Right. In the meantime, India had decided to reduce. And why do we have to reduce? The thing is, today the international global financial system is controlled by the Americans. So no country in the world is in a position to completely cut off and come under sanction, because that will be standing for some kind of a principle at the expense of your national interest. So as a leader of a country, you have to think what is in my best interest currently. So if we have to choose importing oil from Iran or getting sanctions invoked on Indian companies or the banking institutions and others, the choice is right. But at the same time, a country like India It's not a banana republic. It cannot be bowed down into just, we are not a part of a bloc with the Americans. We are an ally, a strategic partner, and we want to support in each other's betterment. And that's what is our whole policy of strategic partnership is all about. So what India has said now? India has said when Jawad Zarif came, he came during a time when the elections were continuing, results were not declared. So Mrs. Sushma Swaraj told him that we will take a decision, I mean public domain, I can tell you. Internally, it's a different thing. That we will try to take a decision after. We continue to push the Americans to somehow allow it. What is happening is we are waiting for the European financial system, a new alternate which is coming up in stress. It is still not functioning. And so we are hoping that that functions and then we can plug into that. Because we have a rupee real trade. So, but you can imagine, it is like the Nepal-India trade. You know, the 13-14 billion dollars of oil comes and you are selling $1 billion of stuff to them. So what happens to the $12 billion? How do you pay them? They need money today, tomorrow, and we cannot supply that many goods to under the barter exchange. Their bank has opened in India. One of the Iranian banks has already opened. So my feeling is that we will not completely, as of today, I think there are no new orders, but we are going to resume imports to some extent under the rupee real agreement. And this is what is very likely to happen. Sir, SARC is, of course, it's a sad state of affairs, and I mentioned why it was happening. But I believe in, you can see it as a half glass full or half glass empty. So when the full regional cooperation is not functional, what is the option for you? Either to just sit back and wait for this situation to improve, or to have alternate mechanisms. So the BIMSTEC is an alternate mechanism which takes care of India's neighborhood first policy and the Act East policy. So it's a combination of the two, which is a win-win situation for the participating countries, whether it is BVIN or BIMSTEC. And inviting Prime Minister Modi in his first inaugural had invited all countries from SARC. So every all leaders had come there. The situation since then has changed. So it is not necessary that you invite only SARC countries. You can invite people from Middle East. You can invite anybody for that friendship. So BIMSTEC is very important. We had a summit here in the country, and things are moving rather much better compared to the other track. Now, blame game continues. I mean, the Pakistanis will say something about India, India will say this, that. But at the same time, I believe that you cannot sit back. You have to move with connectivity, you have to move with trade, you have to move with smoother mechanisms so that all the countries do not suffer. So that's, as far as foreign minister, new foreign secretary becoming the new foreign minister, I think it is it has to be seen in one context. I mean, you can accuse a functionary of being responsible for A or B or C, for which there is legal proof. It is by media reports or it is by some kind of equating it to interference of sorts or hard line. But what is the policy of India today? Today India's policy, first policy is neighborhood first. And this is the best policy, the right policy. Because if your neighbors are not happy with you, you cannot go. It is simple, it is brass tacks. We are making them happy, sir. We are making them happy. we are making them happy, but you see, Imran Khan had a talk with Prime Minister. But what do you do with, I mean, I told you, I mean, if I put a gun on your head, and then I say, be my friend, that is something is very difficult. I mean, even for a common man, I mean, we can't take it from our immediate neighbors some nonsense. But this is a distinction problem. And it is not one-off. If it was one event, one would have understood. And today it is not only Indian agencies that are informing. We have been informed by the Americans, the Russians. They have given the proof of their involvement in everything. So China also knows. That is why the Chinese lifted that objection to the Masood Azhar. You know. So it is The thing is that what I feel is that it will also come round, and I'm sure the situation cannot continue forever. Even though they have this policy, or whosoever in the country has this policy of housing bonds and all that. So I don't believe. So foreign minister will follow the policy that the prime minister presently takes. And the current policy is absolutely. First visit, he is going to Maldives in a few days, which is been only once. Then he goes to SCO summit, where he will be meeting Chinese, Russian, and of course Pakistani will be present there. We don't know whether the meeting will take place. Then he goes to G20 in Osaka, where Prime Minister Modi is slated to meet President Trump, and I'm quite sure that he will be talking about this, all the Iran issue and everything with him as well. If unless by then the situation goes beyond repair.
I have some questions as well as some comments. Since you are from Vivekananda International Foundation, the way you are talking here is really alarming for me, because what I perceive, the situation in coming days may be tough for people. One thing, what I realize is war in Iran is seeming to be inevitable after Ramadan. India will definitely face big oil supply crisis. Then we don't know what will be the situation in Nepal. Of course, if our economy is satellite economy, our economy is pegged with Indian economy. If Indian economy will suffer, then we will definitely suffer. War is also seeming to be inevitable, because the war is sponsored dark regime, I think, needs it. For a long time, world is not facing big war. We know who is having the biggest stakes in weapons manufacturing company. And of course, we talk much about SAARC in Pakistan. SAARC in Pakistan is statistically important for Nepal. We don't have that much cultural and economic relation with Pakistan, but it is statistically important. We usually take the name of Pakistan. We enjoy it. And another thing, I am also around Mr. Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar. He was one of the Indian diplomat, now politician, having biggest reservation with Constitution of Nepal. But we are enjoying this Constitution. And your presence and some knocking points really alarming for we people. Let us hope the coming day will good for we people.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your excellent presentation. It was a really very comprehensive one. As Donald Rumsfeld, former Defense Secretary of the United States, he has told one time that there are unknown knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. And exactly the world is bordering on like uncertainty, vulnerability, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous situation. That is what we are, the world is going and bordering on. And as a great strategist considered there, for the prosperity and development of the country should be able to account for defense, development, diplomacy, as well as economy, energy, and environment. As Nepal is a poor country, and the oil is being the major import, by India to Nepal, and Nepal's trade deficit stands at 1:18 with India. And as India's policy refers to neighborhood first policy, and Nepal being a friendly country with India, and we do have a historical ties with India, and being diplomats and being good well-wisher of Nepal, how can India help Nepal in becoming less dependent on oil? I mean, if India can help Nepal to find alternative energy so that dependence on oil will be decreased in the future, and Nepal will be more prosperous and developed country. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Good evening. I missed out my introduction on purpose because I am not a participant, but still I am intrigued by the agenda and would like to speak. I think we here failed to mention is that, and I totally disagree with the previous excellency that Nepal is poor. I think Nepal is rich and is rich in hydropower. So I think we should think it as an alternative purpose for the oil, while we play along as being a pawn to the major countries like US. So we still can see hydropower as an alternative, and maybe SARC could itself be a way out of it. Like maybe all the 7 countries can get together and work for the hydropower by investing or something like maybe, but hydropower can be an alternative. That's it.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for clarifying the thing that the world is, the economy based on oil is transforming, and it's more or less more the 20 to 30 years the oil power will be prevail in the world. And my question is about the changing of the world. Like as she said, Nepal is not a poor country, like a rich country in terms of water. Like if we change the crop, just changing the oil into water, like the scenario of if we interchange the impact of oil in terms of water, like what will be the likely scenario? Like as I was in Kashmir, that there is the war tussle, like changing the water in the Indus River, diverse by Chinese, Indian or Pakistan. Like this, Nepal being very rich in fresh water, we can sell water, and also even the Middle East countries are investing a lot in solar energy and hydropower. If the Nepal can sell fresh water to Middle East, rather than talking the debate on oil to water, what will be the scenario if we change the world from oil to water? From vision after 30 years, as you said. Thank you.
So you were saying it is inevitable and that is the fear. And the whole discussion was all about the impact it will have on us. It will happen. It happens. And I am not only worried about the energy security, I am personally worried about what will happen to our millions of people there. If the war ensues, we are not in a position, no country is in a position to evacuate them, take them out if this really happens, because missiles will be going around all over. And this will be all out. So it is in everybody's interest today to see to it that we do not cross the threshold and there is some kind of accommodation. And that much, I think, sense should prevail on all of them. So that is the worst case scenario, that the war really happens. It can't be a limiting war, it can't be a limited warfare, unless, of course, by some, I am not aware, our friends from the army can probably tell better, that the Western countries have this kind of power that they can completely immobilize the Iranian response. That is very different. But if the war really, conventional warfare, as they are talking about, goes on, it will be very, very disastrous. And I would not like to, I am not worried about the oil. Of course, economies go and go, coming down. You can handle it for 1 year or 2 years like that, it will go down. But I am more worried about what will happen, because that will shape the regimes as well. I have been involved in evacuating, I mean, the maximum number of people we evacuated ever was 160,000 from Iraq, or 180,000. We have done 18,000 in Libya, and you can imagine that is a mammoth task. and 3-4 times that I was involved in the evacuation. So I know it is an extremely difficult thing, and many countries don't have it. India still has some kind of navy and some kind of power where it can still try to evacuate and do something. So apart from the total disaster, that is another major problem that is going to happen, and I think that our efforts are, I think that globally everybody is trying to contain it. That is the basic thing. SARC, Pak, you said you are strategically important, friendly country, Pakistan. I would like to say the same. But if you are in the same boat, you will know that you have to be cautious. We are not asking others to, but what we are asking, if they are your friends, then you must tell them that look, it is an unreasonable, unproductive policy that you are following. Can you contain it? You tell Mr. Imran Khan, he will say, yes, I will do it. But does he have the power? Does he have everybody on board with him? No, he doesn't. So what happens in this situation? We continue to be at our guard. Despite that, we have these occasional problems. We are not United States, where they, after 9/11, they completely sealed off the place. They made it a state where everybody is controlled, everybody is working. We don't have that kind of means available in India. Plus, we are the third biggest, largest Muslim community in India. And now recently, even the ISIS has opened an office apparently, and the Al-Qaeda in India. So this terrorism is something that has to be fought jointly. And since between India and Pakistan, Kashmir is not the real issue. We have said out of the 8 committees, we are ready to talk about Kashmir. We have said it always. But then you cannot fight Kashmir through terrorist ways. So that is my take on that. Well, as far as the reservation with constitution, I think you have a very nice constitution that's working perfectly fine, and everybody should be happy with that. And you want to be, now nobody can change it unless you want to change it. So that's your own problem. Of course, I know that constitution is sacrosanct, and no country should try to. Sir, it should be. I tell you, it is always, you always have what we did. When we did our constitution, what we did in our constitution, it was not homegrown. We got the best from all the countries, from different countries, different things were brought in. Plus, it's a dynamic constitution. You can always change it at the parliament. So that's there, but. I commented about Mr. Jaishankar as a foreign minister, and I think that you will see a great difference in the operation. You are perfectly right. Defense, development, diplomacy, and all these things go hand in hand for the prosperity of any country. But then Nepal as a country, India as a country, we are also living in an international world. We would like to follow the idealistic principle, but they are not living in an ideal world. The small fact can create a bigger problem. And we hope that it will not happen. As far as the less dependence on oil is, we are exactly in the same boat as you. 70% of India's budget also goes towards import of oil. It is, and it is going to increase. If you want to grow at the rate of 8%, 9%, you need more energy. So what India is trying to do is now focus more on hydropower. Maybe I have a theory about it. I think that OPEC countries are controlling the oil prices by reducing the production, by marketing, increasing the price, everything. No, they are already facing the problem in their budgets. So they are not going to reduce the oil price. This is happening. Americans also have a limitation. And your question was that how will we fill up the Iran be discontinued? Americans are saying we will give you, Saudis are saying, but it is not the same thing. Nobody can meet your growing requirement, none of these countries. And therefore Iran supply is very important. And it's in our neighborhood. Why do you go 10,000 kilometers to buy the oil? We could not even buy oil directly from the Russians, because although we have oil blocks there. So it has to come through exchange and other mechanisms. So I feel that we have to have some kind of a buyer's party, that we also have a voice. We should be able to, the countries that are China, India are the biggest consumer of oil in the world. Now we have started collaborating with the Chinese in Latin America and in Africa on the oil front. So it is very important. That's where you can bring about, instead of unnecessary competition, we can have a better deal for ourselves. So once we are having better deal, you will have a better deal, because as such it is in preferential terms that this assurance has been made to supply to Nepal and Sri Lanka and to Bangladesh. Secondly, we will have to diversify more on gas. And gas, hopefully Myanmar and Bangladesh will become rich in gas, and we will be able to use that through pipelines which are supplying today and all these countries. That will be another thing. The young lady told about the hydropower. That is your strength. India should be able to buy the excess power here, and when you have less, then we should be able to pitch in and supply. So our power exchange agreement should work more smoothly. There are mechanisms, but I think they can do. Lastly, I think that the greatest focus right now we have in India is an alternate source of energy, of which solar energy is the best thing. You know, you may not have that kind of solar radiation, but when we produce in India and then we put it in our grid, we'll have a surplus energy that can be supplied to across. So that could take care of a lot of, then electricity vehicles are coming up by 2030 in most of the world will use it. So the dependence on the hydrocarbons will be substantially. In India we have 2023, we will cut down on all the two-wheelers. No two-wheeler will be given a license if it is not electric. So these are the things that we have to. Then water versus oil. Your question is actually an extremely important question. And you are sitting on a good water reserve. Keep it safe. The future wars are going to be wars for water. And the strategists will find out. The whole world is running out of water. And with potable water. And the technologies are not yet good enough or cheap enough. Like the Middle East, we can use to desalinate the water. Therefore, it is extremely important that if you have this blessed situation of having good water in your rivers and everything, of course, like the Indus Water Treaty and all these have their own problems between China, India and Pakistan. But we have to see to it that all the countries that are on the, whether it's India, Nepal, Bhutan, so these countries are provided for the waters that they require in accordance with the treaties. We have to respect the treaty. It should not happen the same kind of thing that happened to the Iranians. When we have an international treaty, we should try to, and if it is to be changed, all the parties should be on board. That's very important. We do not wish to use water for that. That's why, you know, in the Indian media, for the last 2 years, there have been these voices that India should change this Indus Water Treaty. We are not able to utilize. So we have to first find a way where we can utilize our share of water. So what we are doing right now is, the water that was flowing unnecessarily is going to be harvested. It's not being done. So that takes time. It will take another decade or so. So that's where I should.
One of the reporters of Al Jazeera recently, he's written saying that President Donald Trump is working to bring allies together in the region against common challenges, but also to seize common opportunities. Now, in that backdrop, in that scenario, I believe India is stopped buying fuel from Iran. I heard that. I do not know whether it is coming to practice. But also I believe that India is keen to buy fuel not against dollars but against Indian rupees. So are the Russians wanting to buy in rubles? So I would like to comment on this, Excellency. And then currently, I just came back from a seminar that was recently organized by NISA Center, near South Asia. Now they are questioning who is more powerful, Chinese or the Americans, and they've been asking this to East Asian countries. And they are telling no, for us Russia is important because America doesn't do any dealing with us. For us they are important country for us. It depends. This is a very void situation that has been compelled with the current scenario in spite of America remaining the most powerful country economically or militarily. So how do you see India and then how do you see this oil crisis with the current new re-election of Narendra Modi?
So I agree with you that these are, I mean, there are statements and the intent. There are two different things. As the diplomats know that you can make a very well couched language. As you know that recently, I think tomorrow, or it happened yesterday, I think tomorrow, all the Arab leaders, especially the Gulf countries and the GCC, are meeting in Mecca to discuss this situation. Because for us, we are talking of the impact. They are going to be the active participants in this. Because their countries are hosting the American bases, and if there is a war from there, then obviously they tend to be directly in the line of fire. So there is a much more at stake for them, even though they would want the Iran to be contained. Qatar, for a change, the first time I'm seeing the Qatari Prime Minister, after the blockade 2 years ago, is going, not the Emir, but the Qatari Prime Minister, who is the brother of the Emir, is going to the summit in Mecca, which is happening, which is a welcome sign. That means that the Gulf countries, Arab countries are coming together. One more thing, Excellency, you must be knowing that Iranians have huge amount of investments in UAE, and also in Qatar. And there's one country which is supplying, and the biggest gas field that Qatar has is shared with the Iranians. So their whole wealth depends on this biggest oil gas field that the Qataris have. So therefore, it is extremely important that this situation is resolved. Iran has to also amend its ways. It's not that it is innocent totally. In my view, they also have their own rights to hedge themselves. They cannot just continue like that. Then, the rupee-ruble trade is, or the rupee-rial, as I said earlier, that we have a rupee-rial agreement between India and Iran, which was used earlier also to buy the oil and supplying various goods that they are doing. But there is an imbalance in that. Against $14 billion, you are supplying 1 billion, let's say. So how do you pay the rest of the 13 billion? It's sitting in rupees. So they need the money today, so they also want some kind of no banking system. Last time there was a banking system which was working through Europe to Germany, through Russia to Germany. So India continued to import the oil for a very long time, despite the sanctions. Now what we are waiting for is, one is, as I said, it has been, theoretically no new orders have been placed. But India has said that it will probably take recourse to importing again from Iran. And we are hoping that this new European mechanism, which is going to work the instructs, which will be for working for the European and the Iranian companies and supplying to Iran, because they are importing a lot from there. So we could use that facility. And that will be there. Thirdly, we have given a permission for the Iranian bank to operate in India. So that will be working with that. That's what I feel that this would be the case. You said China is important or US is important. It depends on which country you ask. The thing is that most countries would like to keep good relations both with the US and China, especially in Asia. That is because China is probably the largest trading partner for almost all countries in the world. And therefore a lot depends on the growth of, you might say that everybody wants to contain China, grow in China, but China is an economy that if it goes down, the rest of the world will also go down. So nobody should have an interest in Chinese economy going down, rather its growth. But what people are fearing is that whether it is going to be a benevolent growth, benign growth, or it is going to be a real macho power, which I doubt, because Chinese are very smart. So I don't think they are doing that kind of power projection. But they don't want to be cowed down to unreasonable demands from the West.
So first of all, thank you very much on behalf of all of us. So giving there is a saying in Nepali, "Sunne lai sunko mala." Those who have listened, they will get the golden garland. And bhanne lai fulko mala, and you will get the garland of flowers. So thank you very much, and thank you all our participants who participated in this program. I think it has given me a very enlightened us about the energy issues, because I also you talked about the Soviet Union, America, China, India, you see. Fortunately, I am Soviet graduate, you see.
No, I was the first.
Yes, special. So, we are sitting the person who is working on in this hotel, a lot of issues on we call it the Renewable Energy Confederation of Nepal. Recently, I going to a speech by the Bill Gates, where they are talking about the development of the renewable energy and the wind energy that give another threat to the what we call the oil or Middle East. So now the energy scenario, the world is also changing. It is not the 1970s or you see Iraq war that time, you see. So the energy scenario is also changing worldwide, you see, and then nationally, regionally, you see. So the energy security, every country now thinks that the energy security, because it gives you the food, the water. So this nexus of water, energy and food nexus, that gives the sovereignty of the country, you see. So energy sovereignty has become very, very important, so everybody is working on it. I think another, the diaspora, certainly you see when the people become a little bit rich, it's become, you see, come from village to the city, from city to the capital, you see, it's come everywhere, you see. So that diaspora also is there, will be there adjusting globally also. So one of the biggest threats I think is for us, that Nepal economy, not only Nepal, even India, there's a lot of things coming from all these regions. And it will be coming, you see, in the coming days also, because I think rich people become lazy and poor people like to work for them. So they have to pay for us, you see, by the time you are not rich also, you see. So I will not beg because everybody is now getting to eat something. So I will thank you again. Thank you, sir, very much for enlightening us about the and our Excellency Australia, you see. We have in all our 6 countries, you see. And sometimes we meet our diplomats or excellencies, and they say, oh, they think only how they are going to take care of the labor issue. Most of the agenda, whether the ambassador to Qatar or the Saudi or their issues is how they protect these labor rights, or what is the migrants' laborers, the rights is also, or their safety, all these things, you see. So these issues will be coming day. And lastly, I am thinking, there are always the question of this. Here is Shankar, new minister. Jai Shankar. Jai Shankar. Shankar or Jai Shankar. I remember it just came on the airport. But I think, as you say, might be, because after this issue, I think Modi was 3 times in Nepal. One he spoke in the parliament, another he went to the Muktinath, then he came to Janakpur Dham. So I think sometimes let the God, what you say, sometimes give the Gandhiji or Muktinath's blessing to your new minister also to develop, as you say, the never first policy. And just develop the good friendship. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Nepal is very important for us.